You are welcome to the Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa podcast, episode 003. Let's do it.
Hello again, and welcome to the Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa. This is our third podcast. I'm Nenelwa Tomi, and I am your host for the show, The Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa. I'm a Tanzanian American, and as I continue to reflect on my journey as an immigrant transitioning into the United States, food is something that comes to mind as it is such an integral part of the African experience. As a community, we love to eat, and we love to eat well. A couple of years ago, I sat down with my parents and asked them what their favorite Tanzanian meal was. They both responded in unison and said ugali. Ugali is a starchy, polenta-like dish that usually accompanies a side of mchicha, which are greens, maragwe, which are beans, and then some type of meat or fish. There's usually a variation of this in a variety of African countries. But when I pushed a little further about the origins of these particular dishes, I realized very quickly that we didn't have as many dishes that were our own. Many of my favorites had Indian or Arab influences, so I began to think, like food, what else did we not have ownership over? The Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa is a weekly podcast about the African immigrants' experience in the United States. We'll be hearing great stories from immigrants of different nationalities, genders, marital statuses, professions, and experiences. Stories of strength, stories that inspire, stories that show us what obstacles to avoid and how our guests have avoided or overcome them. These are ordinary men and women with extraordinary stories. Let's begin. Our guest on the show today is Pelumi Olatinpo. He is from Nigeria and has lived in the U.S. for 16 years. Pelumi is currently working as a writer and techie and lives in Maryland. Like many African immigrants, Pelumi came to the U.S. to find greener pastures, but discovered that the road wasn't as easy as once advertised. Pelumi, welcome to the Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa.
Thank you. It's a delight to be here with you.
It's wonderful to have you as well. So we're going to start kind of getting a background as to who you are and what is important to you. So can you start with just letting us know where home is for you?
Well, that's a very loaded question. I guess home is where I most feel comfortable, where I'm most in my elements. I'm a literal person. I'm a poet. I'm a writer. So I guess when I'm in a surrounding that kind of nourishes those aspects of me, I will consider that to be home, if that answers your questions in any way.
Somewhat. So kind of moving away from the abstract version of home and kind of getting to the literal, okay. Where do you see home currently? So is that Nigeria? Is that United States? Talk a bit about that.
Home is currently United States, definitely. Like you mentioned, I've been here for about 16 years now. So I think I've kind of just, settled into my environment. I consider this primarily home before I considered, Nigeria will be a second home in that sense.
Excellent. And so how has your transition, especially seeing as the United States seems to be a primary kind of centering for you or home for you, grounding, how has that shaped your worldview, especially as you navigate both spaces?
I think definitely now when I think of world issues, I definitely think of it maybe more as an American first because I've been through the school system here, although primarily, I spent some years in the school system back home. My adult life has been here in the States. So most of my world opinions were formed, by being here in the States. I do consider myself as an international person. Definitely, all my views are not American-centric, if I can put it that way. But yeah, in that sense, I tend to, put things in the American context first, and then, expand from there.
Gotcha. So what brought you to the United States?
I guess, the same story of most immigrants, whether African or Asian that I know, better opportunities. My parents particularly felt that for my sibling and I, the United States presented better opportunities. Education-wise, economic-wise, and social-wise. The stability of a country like this as compared to that of Nigeria. So those kind of things were the primary push to coming here.
And do you remember your first impressions of the United States when you arrived? Did you have any preconceived notions about it that have now since been shattered, or did it pretty much seem to sum up exactly what you thought?
I think, before coming to the United States, I, of course, like most immigrants before coming, my view was based on what I saw mostly on TV. There was all these movies and all these TV shows that were just show the land of goodness. In my mind, I always wondered, how do they live? There was some kind of high expectation of, that things have to be so serene and peaceful over there, and it was very, very unlike the kind of whatever chaos there was back home. So coming here, I think one of the first things that immediately struck me was the sense of order that I saw. Everything seems very, much in coordination and transition from the road, the traffic light. At least, I mentioned the traffic light because that was one of the very first new experiences to me that, wow, okay, cars are stopping. All right, I know that does not exist back home, but it's far in between having that kind of synchronized environment. So I think those are my first impression, just the road system.
And do you feel like your expectations have been met?
Yes, I believe my expectations have been met. I guess maybe because I personally did not think the U.S. was an utopia. I expected a more advanced and more orderly place, but I didn't think it was utopic in any sense. So from that perspective, I would say whatever expectations were met.
Definitely. So how have your impressions of the United States, infrastructure, all of these elements that I think once surprised you, how have those changed over time, if at all?
I think, I've come to realize that, there are shortcomings, here and there. And that, as much as the United States has come a long way, it still has a lot, longer journey to cover. There's certain things that, there's certain freedoms, there's certain rights, there's certain victories that have been won. Maybe whether it be civil rights or whether it be economic justice and things of that nature. That those elements are in constant struggle, or that a lack of attention to them, might cause them to be derailed or to be lost. So I see it as a sense that, there's, the United States still has, a lot of ground to cover despite, its current or past success.
Definitely. So now we're going to move into talking a bit about some of the challenges and obstacles one may face as they transition into a new space. So as you continue to kind of grow and develop, especially once you learned what was and what wasn't through your preconceived notions, can you talk about the assimilation process and how difficult it may have been to transition into a new culture?
Oh, yes, definitely. I think my biggest primal challenge was when I came to the States. I was a teenager, so I did some high schooling here. And I think initially I was very, very surprised about would I say maybe for lack of a better word, loose structure of the classrooms. Because coming from back home, a student could not just walk out of the class at will. There was a sense of rigidity. Okay, wanted to go out, you have to take excuse from the teacher and things of that nature. But over here in my high school, I remember my first couple of classes, students were just walking out or coming in whenever they wanted. I was like, wow, goodness gracious. Students were kind of like talking back to instructors, to teachers. That to me was kind of like a novel idea, because I was like, where I came from, you do that, you're gonna have some lashes. So it was, it was very, very quite interesting. That I struggled to just understand that for a bit, and I think my other biggest challenge with assimilation was my accent. Was my accent, because I felt like very, very quiet. It was quite easy, the temptation to start talking Americana, if I can put it that way. It was a very, very big challenge. I think I did not make a decision on that until my second year in high school. Throughout my first year, it was my name. I think here and there I will pronounce it differently. I will speak Ebonics, just to fit in. But I think it was ultimately my second year of high school. I was like, okay, you know what? At the core of who I am is my identity, and I just have to be a hybrid, if I can put it that way. So,
definitely.
Yeah.
And it's funny that you bring up names, because I think that's such an obstacle that many of us as immigrants face when we're coming into the United States, because we do want to be embraced and to be supported by our peers and by those different groups. And so there are times where we do, switch the A to an accent, or, we allow for that shift. And so can you talk a bit more about that, especially when it comes to names, because there's a lot of power, there's a lot of thought that goes into giving us, especially as an African community, our names. Usually there's a long history there's a story with that. So can you talk a bit more about how you've combated some of those issues, and how I think you can probably continue to combat that now in your adulthood as you navigate, different spheres as a writer, as a techie, and have to interact with different populations?
Yes, definitely. I think, and I'm a big, advocate of Africans, sticking with their African identity, because I think at the core of this whole assimilation, of this whole transition of immigrants, especially Africans in the United States, is maybe not feeling like they have to defend themselves. Because, for example, now, most often, maybe an African, let's use myself for example. My whole full name is Pelumi, but I cannot always say Pelumi, because then for some, I'm speaking to an American, that brings up a conversation. Okay, wow, can you spell that? What does that mean? It gets me into a different line of conversation that maybe at that particular point in time, I want to talk to you about something else. So I think, a lot of Africans doing that comes from that respect. But I also feel like there's a middle ground. So my middle ground, instead of saying Pelumi all the time, is saying my name is Pelumi. Which is kind of okay. And I've had people tell me, can I just call you P? I'm like, no, you can't call me P.
You can't call me P.
That's just like a perfect cop out. And I feel like identity is core to who we are. And, there's and I see when maybe the Chinese guy comes here, he still calls himself, for lack of better word, Chinchon, but Africans are quick to, go with English names because they don't want to have that conversation. They don't want to be different. They just want to fit in. They don't want to, stand out, ethnic wise and things of that nature. And I think that erodes, the African identity. And if identity is at the core of who we are, and it's important that, we stand up, and embrace that.
For sure. Well, thank you for giving us one example of how you have overcome that challenge, because I think it's a difficult one when we're treading two different worlds, essentially, in that transition. But can you talk to us a bit more about how you've overcome other challenges, especially as you transitioned from high school and you ventured into college, and that's a whole different world and a whole different set of expectations. So talking a bit about that into your adulthood.
Okay. Yeah, I think the other challenge will be economics. As immigrants, we come in here, I'll probably say my parents and I probably came out at the same time, so we both almost like first generation immigrants. So the roots is not there to, let's say, okay, you know what, as opposed to an American that's, very much embedded in the system, that knows where the social safety nets are, where the outreach programs are, or where you can go to reach for help. So I think economics wise, that was a very major challenge that I and my family had to overcome, because and in that regards, I found out that a lot of times, we seek out, I had to seek out means that I felt like, was more resourceful in helping to have some financial stability, as opposed to what I wanted to do. Maybe one little nugget about me that you might not know, I started out being a nurse. I went into nursing, not necessarily because nursing was my first primary instinct, but because it was something that was available to me and offered the financial remuneration to sustain myself, sustain my family. So I think that's a lot of challenge as well that Africans face. Some of us are maybe physicists back home, but we come here and to find a job that will pay for that is a little bit hard. So sometimes a lot of us have to transition into jobs that not necessarily primer calling and things of that nature. So I think from that point, economics, finding a career, getting into a career that supports, my passion was a major challenge.
Definitely. Thank you for that advice. So we know that in the African community, for a majority of us, family and tradition plays a pretty big role in the decisions that we make, if not sometimes the ultimate role. Most times our family members don't really understand what we're going through while trying to integrate into a new environment. What role, if any, did your family play in helping or sometimes hindering you from the work that you try to do as you establish yourself in the United States?
I think family is very important, especially because I remember there many times. I think parents, for instance, bring a context that I, by virtue of never spending my adulthood in Nigeria, for example, cannot speak to. So there are certain things maybe I wanted to do, a certain path I wanted to take that my parents, by virtue of their African upbringing, were like, okay, you know what? That is not maybe how we will do that back home. That is not maybe how you approach that back home. And that's, provided some context. Because at the end of the day, I have, by, would I say, heritage, or if I can put it that way, because my adult life has been here, but at the same time, I spent, up to my teen years, back in Nigeria as well. So parents, family, they're very crucial in providing that context, because at times, as immigrants, let's say you don't want to maybe raise kids here that are totally devoid of of the context of things back home, or maybe because, for example, now in African society, you meet an elder person, it's either you're prostrating or you're kneeling down. Those are the kind of things that I cherish that, family, helps you to reinforce, even though at times you may find yourself forgetting that, let's say were to go to an event. I think, to be quite honest with you, I think maybe at some point, my high school days, there's some point maybe I would see an older gentleman, and maybe my instinct, because I was trying to be Americana, my instinct would be just walk out to him, stretch for my hands, and I think my parents had to frown on a couple of those instances and be like, you're gonna
bend
keep
down.
it, yeah,
bend down.
You want to keep it real this way? No, this is the other way to keep it real.
Right,
So.
right.
So that was, so family is very, very important, in helping us to just reinforce our roots and maintain context.
I totally agree. And then do you find that maybe there are some continued challenges as you reconnect with the rest of your family that's still in Nigeria? Because although you and your parents and family that's currently based here in the U.S. are kind of going through that bicultural experience of, jumping between the two worlds, maintaining culture, history, heritage, but also trying to move forward and progress in this new space, how do you continue to maintain those ties to family that is abroad, and especially with them not necessarily understanding the whole picture?
Yeah, I think that's a very big challenge. I recently had a family come up, visit. So I think a lot of the things that they probably saw me and my sibling do were totally out of context for them. It was hard for them to relate because it's and I could not blame them, because that was not the norm back home in Nigeria. So I think there's that constant struggle. So I think at times when either I'm speaking to them or my sister is speaking to them, we are conscious to follow our conversations with anecdotes, with stories, just to make sure that they can relate. But even then, there can still be moments of frustration because we're like, okay, you are calling me this time, you're calling me that time, okay, and maybe you expect some kind of rapid response. When I tell you, okay, maybe I'm at work at so hour of the day, you are like, what? You are at work at 9 p.m.? Back home in Nigeria, at 9 p.m. everybody's in bed, or
right.
I'm, at home or doing something else. So those kind of, disparities making, that could cause, some misinterpretation of intent or will.
Right.
Yeah,
That's really helpful. Thank you for sharing that. So now we're kind of going to transition into advice, because our audience members want to get support again and in this transition and know what to take from this conversation. So knowing what you know now, what advice would you give to your younger self that immigrated here 16 years ago?
Definitely. I think identity. Stay, embrace your roots. There's not another you out there. And whenever you trade you for who you think you should be, a big part of humanity is lost. A big part of humanity is lost, because when a big part of you having your roots, so whether you're African or whether you're Asian or, big part of you having the kind of accent that you do, a big part of you bringing to the table what you bring to the table is because of your upbringing, it's because of where you've been. So whenever, you come here to the new immigrant, to the new me, that's coming now, I say just, be true to who you are. I mean, who you are can be many things, but the core of who you are is, what brought you here. So identity is important. Stay true to that. And I think also try to, be among other immigrants, try to be among other Africans or other Asians. Because at times I find a lot that at times immigrants come in here and they try to maybe because of some bias they have against immigrants already here, they say, you know what, I'm going to be going to strolling maybe to an African American church. I'm going to be going only to, I want to work only with African Americans and not work with any immigrants at all. And at times, you lose certain resources that those immigrants might have, as a result of being here. For maybe you need just the kind of food that you need, items you need. By being in that community, those immigrants might know where you can get it for cheap, as opposed to maybe getting it for the high price you're getting it at your African American community. So Stay connected. Do not disconnect yourself.
That's great. And that's a great transition. So apart from people, which are fantastic resources, let's not forget one another. What other resources do you know of that would be useful to immigrants, whether they've had a similar experience to yours or not?
There are a few diaspora organizations around. Connecting, being a part of those, I think would be great. And the many diaspora organizations that we do have around are great resources. That's
great. Thank you for sharing that. So are you working on any projects right now that you'd like to share with our audience members so we can learn more about it?
Oh, yes, definitely. I'm always writing. At least I try to write as often as I can. On my blog, restlesschronicles.com, RESTLESS Chronicles.com. I try to blog about socio-political events, whether they are domestic here to the United States or international. If it's making headline somewhere, or if I think, whether it's not even an headline or whether I think it's something that I think will benefit a lot of people, whether you're an immigrant or you're an American. So I try to, write about that. So yes, restlesschronicles.com. Please, pay me a visit and you can read what I have to say.
Excellent. And is that the only place that we can reach you is through the website? Do you have a Twitter?
Oh, yes,
I have social media accounts?
Yes, yes, I do. You can find me on Facebook, Pelumi Olatinpo. I have a Twitter handle, Pelumi TV. Yes, those are, great, mediums to get in touch.
Well, excellent. Thank you so much, Pelumi. We appreciate you coming on my show. This has been a truly inspiring discussion. I wish you all the best with your next steps and as you continue to progress in this new community. We appreciate having you on the show.
Thank you very, very much. It's been a pleasure.
It's been really great having Pelumi on the show. If there's a guest you'd like us to interview or any questions you want asked on subsequent shows, or you just want to say hello or leave an encouraging word, please post them on the Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa page on Facebook. We've learned a lot this evening, but one thing I want to leave you all with that Pelumi articulated so well was that we really need to remember one another in this process, to continue to connect with each other, because you're not going about this process by yourself, and you're not the first one to do it. So definitely remember that you have a community of partners in this process. In addition to that, don't forget to embrace your roots and your African identity, because that's what makes you you, that's what makes you special, that's what makes you unique. And so we don't want to lose that in this assimilation process. Please refer to restlesschronicles.com for more information on Pelumi's work and continue to follow us. That's our show for today. Special thanks to the creator and producer of this show, Adetoye Oremosu. The Immigrant Experience with Nenelwa is a weekly podcast, and I look forward to bringing you a brand new story with an inspiring and exciting guest next week. Until then, keep winning.